Welcome to Not Scrum Dumb. In this episode, we kick off our myth busting journey by tackling the misconceptions surrounding the purpose of Scrum. It's time to set the record straight. I'm your host, Andriana Marshall, and professional Scrum trainer, and my amazing co host is
Grand Scrum Master Scott.
join us today as we deep dive into the world of Scrum, of course, and we're going to unravel the truths behind the myths and equip you with the knowledge to navigate the Scrum framework with confidence. So get ready to level up your Scrum game and say goodbye to being Scrum dumb. The first myth that we want to tackle today is Scrum is just a project management methodology. What do you think about that, Scott?
Scrum is just a project management methodology. Not, I don't think so. When I think about a methodology, I think about a complete package. I'm thinking of the alphabet goes from A to Z. And when I think about a methodology, ladies and gentlemen, I think about A, B, C, D, and all those things to get to Z. And if you do all those steps, if you do all those letters, then ultimately you will get to your goal and your destination. But Scrum is just a framework, meaning that it's not laid out A through Z, and you have to hit every single letter in the alphabet. Instead, we say, okay, we're going to start with this and use empiricism in which to inspect and adapt along the way to get to our destination. So one is pretty prescribed, which would be project management, versus Scrum is less prescriptive. Sure, we have the framework, which some could think of that as a mini process. It's a lightweight process, but it's certainly not as prescriptive as a methodology. Andriana, your thoughts?
I would just add to that project management is focused on the success of the project. So, is it in budget? Is it on time? Is it within scope? While Scrum is focused on product development. Do we have a high quality product? Are we servicing the needs of our users or our customers? So, it's a bit more centered around empiricism, constantly getting feedback, transparency, inspection, adaptation, while project management is not focused on that traditionally. A project manager may do it for their particular project, but may not be for the entire product.
Totally agree.
All right. So the second one is Scrum is only for software development. We know that marketing and HR teams are now using it, and a lot of the software development aspects have been removed from the Scrum guide. I think people, maybe Scott, you can touch on this, but people get a little caught up in the developer word.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, give them a little bit of history for those who might be new to the podcast, new to the channel. Thank you, by the way. Did you like, subscribe? What are you waiting on? Back to the answer. Initially, Scrum did start out just for software development and IT, but over time, for those of you who are in IT and software development, you know that every time we create something and put something out there for good, people find other ways to use it. I'm thinking about Chat GPT. It was put out there to help you do good, but I'm a professor at Wilmington University, and y'all made my life pretty challenging. I can't prove that my students have gone from being not Shakespeare before Chat GPT, and now they're Shakespeare. But since then, beyond that, Scrum has been used for several different domains. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know a domain that Scrum has not penetrated. I'm thinking about there's a case study on scrum.org. Ghana Police Department uses Scrum to reduce crime. Andriana and I did a case study at Interlink. You can check out that video. Whereas tried Scrum the first time, and then they did a reboot, and it's a great information in that. But Interlink, I think, is healthcare. Andriana, is that correct?
Yeah.
So Interlink is healthcare. Again, I can't think of, ladies and gentlemen, that Scrum has not penetrated. And like Andriana said, it is used even within the corporation, not even IT. I'm thinking about marketing. I'm thinking about sales. I'm thinking about human resources and just different departments and domains, even within the company. Manufacturing, distribution. I'm thinking of Tesla. I'm thinking of Amazon. I'm thinking of Apple. So many companies, even beyond the IT sector, including healthcare, manufacturing. I can't think of a company a domain that Scrum has not penetrated yet.
Yeah, great points. So the next one is Scrum is a silver bullet for all organizational problems. And I can tell you right now, some of the articles that I've seen where they're like, oh, my comes in and always asks me for a status update. There is nowhere in Scrum where it tells somebody to pester you all day and ask you for status updates and random things. Like you will not even see status report in Scrum. So it's not going to solve your people problem. In fact, you can see that person's not respecting your space, which respect is a value in Scrum. You have anything else to add to this, Scott?
Yeah, Scrum is a silver bullet for all organizational problems. It's certainly a myth. I'm thinking of the corporation that they should be asking the question before they start Scrum. Will Scrum help us get to our destination? Will Scrum help us solve our customer related problems? Oftentimes, in the environments I've been in, Andriana and others, a lot of companies start Scrum because the Joneses down the street started Scrum. They don't have any rhyme or reasons. And then I'm also thinking about the companies I've been to. They've had some consulting organization come in and tell them how Scrum is just wow, Scrum will save the day. Scrum will help you deliver faster. Scrum will help you do this. Scrum will help you do that, this, that, the third. And it's all a big fat, but it is not a silver bullet. Scrum, one of the reasons why you want to do Scrum, ladies and gentlemen, is Scrum does a great job of raising impediments so that we as a Scrum team, we as an organization can figure out what do we need to do based upon that transparency of what Scrum raised. What are we going to do about this problem? And we decide that as an organization, as a Scrum team. Typically, we start out at a local Scrum team level, and then that permeates throughout the entire organization as Scrum was designed. Andriana, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Those are really great examples. That leads us to our next one, misunderstanding what the purpose is. So Scrum is all about delivering more features faster. So I will say when we transitioned to Scrum, one of my earlier teams, my earlier career, we did deliver some things faster, but on the other hand, there are some things that were lower in the back in the product backlog. So they didn't get there as quickly as they would have liked. So it's not just about that, but I will say what did improve was our quality, our communication, our relationship with stakeholders. So I think again about having the right mindset when you come into this and understanding the purpose is really going to help. What about the quality, the continuous improvement, the lessons learned, the connection with the stakeholders, providing what they actually need? Because there are times where I've also had stakeholders tell me stuff that would actually be problematic to their product and they didn't know it. So having those regular check-ins, empiricism is really helpful. What do you think about this, Scott?
Scrum is all about delivering more features faster. No, that's a big fat myth. We're not a feature factory, ladies and gentlemen. We're really trying to give the customer what he or she wants as soon as want. So even in class, Andriana, both of our classes, we teach that no, Scrum does not promise us to deliver faster. We promise to deliver value to our customers sooner. So what's the difference? Easy analogy I can give you, ladies and gentlemen, is I want you to think about building a house. If I tell you I'm gonna build you a house and it takes 5 months to build a house, it doesn't matter whether you use project management, Scrum, Dumb, something that haven't even been created before. It doesn't matter what you use. If it takes 5 months to do a thing, it takes 5 months to do a thing. But what Scrum says is we're gonna take a portion of that and maybe build one room of that house at a time. Still, the project may last 5 months, but every 1 month, which is a sprint time box, we're going to deliver you something, a portion of that house, whereas you can move into, for example, the bedroom out of a 12-room house could be an example. But that's all I have on that, just as a quick example.
The next one is Scrum stifles creativity and innovation. This, when I see this online, it shocks me that people think this way. The whole point is so your team has autonomy and can make these decisions and be creative and innovate together and work together. And it also seems like maybe they have the problem of being a feature factory or just accepting any requests from stakeholders and not really thinking through what do our customers actually need? How do we continuously improve to deliver them value? And that will help you get into that space. But Scrum itself doesn't stop you from being creative.
I totally agree, Your Honor. Scrum does not stifle creativity and innovation. In fact, it promotes it because I'm thinking about the value of focus, which we're going to talk about at some future date and time. The value of focus is actually there to come up with creative solutions. I'm thinking about Parkinson's law says that work will expand to the amount of time that you give it. We are amazing human beings. We do amazing things that when we have a deadline that we have to meet. I'm thinking of when I was in MBA school and I had to write that term paper and I had writer's block and that term paper is due 12 hours from now. Guess what I did? Red Bull, coffee. Here you go. Did I get it done? Yes. It was most of the time at the last minute. I'm hitting submit before 11:59, but I got it done. So just as a way to show you how the value of focus actually really helps you come up with creativity and innovative ways to get stuff done. And that's been some of my best work when I laser focus and do it that way. I don't plan to do it that way. It just works out that way.
Yeah. And the next one, Scrum is only suitable for small teams. Now, we know that Scrum could be scaled with Nexus as an example. That is literally based off of Scrum. I know there's Safe says it's based off of Scrum, but that's a whole other topic. But Nexus is purely based off Scrum. You can go to scrum.org and look at the Nexus framework, look at the Nexus guide, and it is absolutely based on that. So you can have multiple teams delivering the same product. It doesn't have to be just for one team only. Anything else to add to this, Scott?
One thing I will add to that is when you think about scaling anything, it assumes that you have a rock solid foundation. So, in all these concepts and these methodologies or frameworks, start out with the understanding that you're doing Scrum well today, and then you're going to build upon that. So, make sure that if you're going to be doing this adoption, make sure that all your stakeholders and everybody is aware that, hey, we might need to spend a little more time on getting our Scrum down first before we start adding other things to it. Because even the Nexus framework that Andriana identified, written by Ken Schwaber and Scrum, the personnel at scrum.org, the whole idea behind that is decoupling, keeping the team small as possible, having less dependencies, because when you start adding more teams, that creates more complexity to the work. And we trying to decouple and keep all that stuff from happening if at all possible. But we do have a scaling framework at scrum.org as well.
Yeah, I think that's the best one. And that's just not because I'm at scrum.org. You can check them all out and you can decide for yourself. But there's Nexus, there's Less, there's Safe. You can check it all out and you can be the judge of that. All right, the final one is Scrum is rigid and doesn't allow for changes or flexibility. Now, this myth makes me chuckle a little because it's literally based off empiricism, transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So that's a whole lot of flexibility at whatever convenient time for you. Maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 1 week. It depends on your team and how much flexibility you actually need and want. And that's dependent on the product that you have. But it makes me chuckle when you think about all of the other methodologies. They are very rigid. You need to go to a committee in some traditional frameworks in order to get a change done. And that could take you several weeks. That could delay the whole project or release that you have going out. What do you think, Scott?
Scrum is rigid and doesn't allow for changes or flexibility. Well, all great points that you identified, Andriano. So I take from the history of Scrum. Scrum started out, I would say, as more prescriptive. I'm thinking about back in the day where they had the 3 questions that we ask at Daily Scrum. We don't have those questions anymore. The only questions we have in the Scrum guide now are at sprint planning. And even those questions are really just about giving guidance. You want to answer the question of, hey, why, what, how? But other than that, it's becoming less prescriptive over the years. And so that we can embrace more empiricism and give the teams more flexibility, since this here, as we talked about in an earlier myth, that Scrum is using a lot of domains like HR and sales. Their way of doing things might be different than IT and other different domains. So over the years, because so many other people are adopting it in departments that we didn't think about nor could predict, then of course it's getting less prescriptive because we're dealing with a broader audience and a broader application.
Agreed. All right, thank you for tuning into this episode of Not Scrum Dumb. We hope you gained some valuable insights and fresh perspective on the purpose of Scrum. If you want to get more insights like this, check out some of our other videos. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel and like this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end, because that means you have an attention span greater than a goldfish. Thanks for watching.
Be legendary, everyone.